Good morning and welcome to Big Bets on Campus Live. This is the Week 11 college football betting preview presented by BetMGM. It's 10:30 a.m. Eastern. I'm your host, Stuckey. Joining me, as always, is my Big Bets on Campus podcast co-host, Collin Wilson, and of course, our own college football insider, Mr. Brett McMurphy. A lot to get to today. We'll get to 4 marquee games with major conference and some college football playoff implications. We'll give our best bets here momentarily. We'll also close with another best bet. And about halfway through the show, Colin and I will build our weekly 5-team round robin parlay. Before we do get started, I want to remind everyone to make sure that you download the award-winning Action Network app. You can find all of our picks there, in addition to an abundance of data and content for today's slate and beyond. Also, sponsors BetMGM have a great offer for new users. When you sign up, use the bonus code ACTION. You can get a risk-free wager up to $1,000. Again, that's the bonus code ACTION. Risk-free wager up to $1,000. Terms and conditions do apply. I also am sadly to report Mr. Darren Ravel he had another card auction, couldn't join us today. I'm sure everyone is upset. You will not be seeing him. So before we get started here, Collin, where you look like you're broadcasting from jail. Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm at jail, but I mean, right down the street is all of the bars next to Lambeau Field. So I'm going to throw on all my thermals, all of my ski bibs. I'm going to go have some spotted cow after this and get ready for Cowboys Packers tomorrow. But you're right. I'm not going to give an endorsement to Hilton. This does look like a jail cell.
Yeah, it's a good reminder. Yeah, enjoy the spotted cow. Great beer. It's a good reminder to always check the weather, too. I walked outside here in Lexington, and it's 32. It was a hailstorm. That total's coming down. So weather obviously is at play. I told myself, wow, perfect day to be inside and bet college football all day, as if I would say anything different if it was sunny and 80 degrees. All right, let's get started with our best bets. Let's first check out the leaderboard. I'm still on top here. Brett, you had this hot stretch where you were bringing the real picks. The last couple of weeks, a little bit of a downswing. Are you going to bring the real picks back today?
No moss, Stuck. You're on fire, man. I'm just trying to stay within, not even within shouting distance at this point, just staying over the Mendoza line. But yeah, these are the real picks this week. No more messing around like last week. Okay.
All right. Yeah, we're getting down to the end here. I'll kick things off let's go with Navy plus 17. This is a neutral site game against Notre Dame. I think this is, look, first of all, you can't handicap Service Academy games the same way you do every other game. You can't just take a raw power rating and apply it because of the way that these teams play. And I think that this is, anytime you're getting over 2 touchdowns with the Service Academy, you have to give it a serious look because they play so slow and they drain the clock. They limit possessions. And by the way, Notre Dame plays the same way. Very slow, very run heavy. There's going to be limited possessions in this game, which makes it very difficult to cover a number over 2 touchdowns, especially with the total. You see the total. A total is 40 for a reason. Dating back 20 years, Service Academy's catching over 14 points. 65% against the spread. Also, Notre Dame coming off 2 wins over ranked teams. They're now a double-digit favorite where they have not fared well this year. They're 0-4 against the spread, have lost 2 outright to Marshall and Stanford. And most importantly, I think this is actually a pretty good matchup for Navy. Their run defense has been tremendous all season. They rank top 10 nationally in a number of run defense categories, and that's all Notre Dame does on offense. They rely on their ground game. They lack explosive weapons on the outside, and that's really how you can attack this Navy secondary, which has been poor all year. And then Navy, obviously a triple option team, all they do is run it. Notre Dame's defense has been much weaker against the run than it has against the pass. So good matchup, good spot, good number. Service Academy catching over 2 touchdowns. Give me the mids. Collin, where are you going?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Syracuse getting some home cooking today. +7 on them up at the Dome. And listen, the defense just does not allow explosive plays whatsoever. And that is a recipe that you have to have against Florida State and Jordan Travis. Specifically, Syracuse is 17th in rush expected points, 8th in pass expected points. What that means is they don't allow explosive plays. It doesn't matter if it's through the air or on the ground. And then once you get past the 40-yard line, any opposing offense, Syracuse is just not allowing any scores. They are 6th in the nation in defensive finishing drives, which means they don't allow anyone in scoring opportunity to get points up on the board. And yeah, that's going to be a struggle for Florida State too, which loves to live on the explosive play. And then the big question is the quarterback situation with Garrett Schrader. You can't get any information out of Dino Babers whether he's going to play. He said this week his quarterback has an injury that the team is sensitive to, if you want to try to read into that. But when you look at the backup, Carlos Del Rio Wilson, he had 5 scrambles last week against Pitt for 34 yards. He's got some movement outside the tackles if he needs that. But it looks like from a market perspective, this got up to about 8.5, came back down to 7. Looks like Schrader's going to play today. So I'm going to stick with Syracuse +7 as my best bet.
Yeah, hope is here buying the dip on Syracuse. Got off to a hot start and then just, 3 straight bad performances, buying low on the stock, and hopefully you get an uptick on Syracuse and it's not an FTX situation. Brett, where are you going?
Hey, look, Collin, like Dino, I'm sensitive about all my injuries too, but I'll play through my injuries. Look, in the time it takes me to give you the reasons why I'm taking Arizona and UCLA over, either offense probably has already ran 2 plays. This is a matchup of 2 of the fastest teams in the nation and 2 of the worst defenses in the nation. Arizona has allowed less than 45 points in exactly 1 Pac-12 game, and that was Colorado. I'm not sure if that should even count. DTR should be in Heisman contention. Look, I have a Heisman vote, but because all of UCLA's games kick off at either 2 a.m. Eastern time or on the Pac-12 network, nobody has seen the Bruins. I have seen the Bruins plenty. They are very, very scary. Give me over Arizona and UCLA.
I like it. You mentioned all your injuries, Brett. Colin, I'm trying to think what if we had to field a Action Network football team. I played some fullback. I might even be too big to play fullback. You might have to put me on the line. Where we got to put you on the line. Where would we put Brett? Out wide out? We got to split him out, or is he quarterbacking?
Brett is our slot corner. I mean, he'll either jam you and shut you down, or we don't know. Lock. He has picks of he has locks, right? So we got to put him in slot corner.
There you go. That works for me.
All right, sounds good. All right, let's move on to our marquee games of the day. We have 4. Let's start in the SEC. Alabama travels to Ole Miss. Ole Miss 10.5, 11-point underdogs here. Over/under sitting, I think, right around 65 still. Interestingly enough, Alabama, they haven't lost many games in the regular season since 2008, but since 2008, after a loss in the regular season, is just 4-8 against the spread under Nick Saban. 0-8 against all other teams not named Mississippi State. Ole Miss coming off of a bye here. The division is still up for grabs, depending on what LSU does today. I'm going to pass here. I keep going back. I just can't get a good read on Alabama. I'm not, I think that they might be a little inflated here, but I'm not in love with this Ole Miss team. There's some holes on Alabama on offense and defense. I'm not positive that Ole Miss can exploit them. If I had to bet it, I might look Ole Miss team total under or game under. And I kept going back and forth. It's a complete pass for me. Colin, help us out.
Yeah, I'm going to go over in this game. I mean, as far as the side goes, I took a little bit of Ole Miss. I'm going to come back on that in an Action Network app if for all of you out there following. But I'm going to bake the over in this game. And pace is such a big part of this. And Lane Kiffin has an offense that runs plays less than 21 seconds per play. And Alabama is a team that just, shuts down lines. They line up and shut down the run, but they can't shut down dual threat quarterbacks. Hendon Hooker, KJ Jefferson, Jaden Daniels, all have had huge success on the ground with designed runs, with scrambles. They're going to get a lot of that out of Jackson Dart here. If you look at his box score, 100 yards on the ground against Texas A&M last week, or a couple weeks ago against Auburn, he had over 100 yards. The Ole Miss secondary is ripe for exposure too. So if Bryce Young is going to scramble against a pretty mediocre pass rush, and then also Ole Miss 95th in passing down success rate, this just says, Bryce Young is going to be able to move around, not get touched, throw it downfield, hold on to the ball for 6 seconds. And on the other side of the ball, I expect Lane Kiffin to go extremely fast and have success with that running attack. But mostly Jackson Dart's legs is what's going to make this an over here. And it's just an interesting dynamic, right? Because Nick Saban treats his former assistants like kids. Like he's emotional about Sark, wouldn't want to blow him out. But with Lane, they both openly speak about the point spread, about who's covering and who's not. There's a real competitive nature here. So I expect these two teams just keep putting points up on the board. So I'll take the over.
Yeah, ultimately what kept me off the Ole Miss team total under was the pace. And you're right about dual threat quarterbacks. They've given Alabama some trouble in the past. That's what happens when you play a lot of man. And also, just if you play perfect defense and you're a well-schooled defense, and Alabama has some issues this year, but when you're a perfect defense, if you can scramble as a quarterback, you can still beat the defense even if they do everything right with that wild card. So yeah, Dart's legs might be a huge factor. I hope for your sake that Bryce Young's 100% in that shoulder. He's on a pitch count in practice, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Because if he is, he should be able to carve up this Ole Miss defense. Brett, where are you going?
After Collin's take, if there are any Monty Python fans out there, and now for something completely different. I like the under. Alabama's not the same team on the road. This is their worst offense in the last 5 years. Why? Compared to past seasons, they have no deep threats. They're averaging only 7.8 yards per attempt, their lowest number in the last 6 years. However, defensively, Bama actually, yardage-wise, I know a lot of plays into that, fewest number of yards allowed since 2017. You mentioned Ole Miss in their run game. They lead the SEC in rushing. They're actually third nationally in rushing. But this is Kiffin's worst passing attack in 4 seasons. I think the running attack will eat up time, even though they do run a quicker pace. I really don't see a lot of big plays in this game because Alabama can't go deep. Ole Miss is going to run the ball. And Collin talked about the relationship between Kiffin and Saban. If either team gets a significant margin, there's actually a great deal of respect between the two coaches. I don't think either one is going to try to run it up on the other one. Now, maybe they'll try to cover, but if it's simply to tack on another score to lay it on Kiffin or Saban, I don't think either guy will do that. So, yeah, I'm going the opposite. Sorry, Collin. I like the under.
All right, fair enough. Let's move on to a conference we don't talk about a ton in the marquee games, but let's go to the AAC. UCF traveling to Tulane. Tulane's a 1-point favorite here, over under 54.5. This game is for first place in the division. Give me Tulane. I'm going back to the Green Wave. They've been a covering machine all year. I don't think they get enough respect in the market for what this defense does. This defense is so well schooled. They tackle. They don't miss any tackles. They fly to the ball. Probably the best group of linebackers at the group of 5 level. Their secondary is excellent. They don't give up explosive plays. Their safeties and linebackers are absolutely electric. Can't wait for more people to get to watch this Tulane defense. On the other side, UCF wasn't impressed last week against Memphis, got a bunch of breaks to steal that game. And this is a team that doesn't generate pressure on defense, and that is the weakness of Tulane's offense. Their offensive line is not great in pass protection. I think Pratt will have a clean pocket today and be able to carve up this weak UCF secondary. Give me the better overall defense at home. The covering machine, Willie Fritz, since 2017, the most profitable home team in college football by far. Roll Wave. Collin, I think you're going to disagree with me here.
Yeah, I am. Sadly, I'm taking Central Florida, and I say sadly because I was following your advice this summer. I've got a couple Tulane 60-1 tickets hanging around the house because it was such a great handicap on them winning the AAC conference. But in this game, it's all Central Florida for me because both of these teams are heavy on the rush. One of these teams just does it a lot better in the trench, and that's Central Florida. They execute better on both sides of the ball when it comes to the ground game, and both these teams are 59% from a rush rate perspective. It looks like John Reese Plumlee, the quarterback for Central Florida, is going to play today. That is another set of legs for Tulane to have to worry about because the beef of this offense comes in R.J. Harvey and Isaiah Bowser, just a load for anybody to try to take on. And Central Florida's defense is just, they're the best in the nation in red zone. I mean, they only allow 61% of attempts by opponents to score. And when you look at like field goal percentage, because when you break down red zones, you want to see, do you allow touchdowns? Do you allow field goals? Georgia forces more field goals than UCF, and that's it. I mean, Central Florida forces a lot of field goals here. So, Tulane has not been great in standard downs whatsoever. They don't own the trench, and the Green Wave are excellent against the pass, but that's just not going to be useful here today against Central Florida. With John Reese Plumlee back there, I like it even more. So give me the Knights.
Yeah, how great of a handicap was me telling everyone Tulane is going to win the AAC, and I didn't say win, but I think there's a ton of value on them. A couple of my friends, including yourself, have tickets. Guess who doesn't have a ticket on Tulane? It's me. I have the win total at least. Wow. Brett, you gonna break the
get
tie
your
here?
tip. Don't worry. You always have to get
Okay.
a finder's fee of 10%, right?
I'll hold you to that. Brett, what do you got?
Stuck, just be proud of that Tennessee to win the East Division ticket you got. Look,
They
you
better
guys
not
are
win the national title.
you guys are on both sides of this. I feel like Sophie's choice here. I got to make a decision. So I'm going to go for option 3. You guys laid it out perfectly. And that's why I'm going with the under. Tulane, top defense in the American, top 20 national defense, UCF, third best defense in the conference. And both teams realize this is a quasi playoff game. The winner is in great position, if not a lock, to get into the ACC championship game and earn a berth to the Cotton Bowl New Year's Six game. Tulane also looking to end snap a streak of 60 consecutive losses to AP ranked opponents. Because of these stakes, I think both teams are going to play conservative. It'll be a lower scoring game. You guys both talked about the rush defenses, the offenses. They're going to run the ball a lot. Initially, I was torn. I was actually considering the over, but then last night, flipping around on TV, I saw my boy Joey Galloway took over on virtual locks. I love you, Joey, but that cinched it. Give me under UCF and Tulane.
By the way, I think you slipped and said the winner is a virtual lock to get in the ACC championship. I actually like that idea. I like that idea.
Yeah, more
winner
conference
game,
realignment. Yeah, sorry about
instead
that.
of Clemson, let's get one of these real defenses in there. All right, let's take a halftime break and go to our round robin moneyline parlay. Collin, we always start with an anchor. What do you got?
Yeah, we're going to go with Wake Forest here. You and I both wanted 3 really bad. Did not get it. After we recorded our podcast, this thing took off, and for good reason. North Carolina's defensive numbers are like a horror movie. Let's go Sam Hartman. Let's go Wake Forest. Let's use it as our anchor here for the round robin.
Yeah, it should be one of the most exciting games today. I think the last 2 meetings, they've scored 113 points twice combined, like 58, 55, and 57, 56 or something. Crazy. Let's go Iowa State. I'm not here to slander Oklahoma State anymore. I just think Iowa State wins this game much healthier. Oklahoma State's on a downward trend. A lot of it's due to injuries, fatigue, and so forth. Let's go Cyclones. What do you got?
Yeah, 100% agree. Have that in the action app. Let's go Virginia. Who? Virginia, the team that has covered 3 straight. They're still fighting hard. I wouldn't have believed that this time of year with their record, but you've seen some resistance in the market on this number. It's a very sharp play today, but Virginia is still covering ball games and still giving out effort. And that's important. When you look at these teams that aren't going to make bowl games, you want to take the ones that are still covering and still trying. And Virginia is one of those.
Yeah, pretty amazing that their offense has struggled so much with Brennan Armstrong, mainly because that offensive line, they lost their offensive coordinator. The defense, one of the most underrated in the country. That defense, if you just look at their metrics and you assume after what you saw with Virginia's defense last year, but their defense is playing extremely well. Let's go with Southern Miss, the Nasty Boys, Golden Eagles. They're playing Coastal Carolina today, who will not have quarterback Grayson McCall, is one of the best in the country. I don't think the market's properly accounting for the downgrade here. I think Southern Miss is a great shot at winning this game outright.
Yeah, we're going to end with UConn. Yes, UConn Huskies, a team that Stuckey and I desperately want in bowl season. If they're going to get to bowl season, they've got to win this game. And I know it's a large spread, but Liberty lost Day Hunter in the second quarter against Arkansas last week. He is not going to play today. He is the most elusive player in PFF grading. That is a huge loss. And Liberty did not score a point in the second half against Arkansas. That entire team for Liberty is beat up because they played Arkansas. So I'm going to take UConn here. Huge motivation to get to bowl season. Liberty without their best player. Let's finish it up with the Huskies. A big long shot.
Yeah, bad spot for Liberty. Jimmy Moore Jr. has those boys playing and covering. They lead the country in cover margin, average of over a touchdown per game. All right, that'll do it for our weekly round robin. Let's get to the second half and finish out with our final 2 marquee games of the day. Let's go to the Big 12 in prime time. This game has Big 12 conference title implications as well as college football playoff implications. Game day will be here. Of course, I'm talking about TCU at Texas in Austin, Texas. 7.5 point favorite here. over under, I think it's sitting at 65 still. For me, it's Texas all the way. The only bad thing about this is this would have been, I think Ravel likes Texas. That would have been his pick, which never hits. So that was sad to hear. I told us that on Green Dot Daily yesterday, but everyone can get lucky sometimes. We hope Ravel gets lucky here. I just think that Texas, I talked about this ad nauseum. TCU's defense has been extremely fortunate. They faced 5 backup quarterbacks. Also, this is, I think, their 8th or 9th straight game. They have a lot of bumps and bruises, some fatigue here. And I think if you play out the season to date 100 times, Texas is actually the undefeated team more times than TCU is. They've been extremely fortunate with QB injuries, and their defensive metrics are still poor. Imagine if they didn't have to face, guys like Davis Bevel for the entire game. They probably still would have won that game with their offense, but their defense has holes everywhere. Texas should be able to move it, whether they want to go explosive pass through the air, feeding Bijan Robinson. And then, Texas's rush defense has been elite all season. TCU should be able to get some stuff through the air, but their best receiver, maybe the best receiver in the country, might not be 100%, Quentin Johnson. And then on top of all of that, you have Gary Patterson, who knows TCU and Max Duggan as well as anybody, now an assistant with Texas. That could help the Longhorns as well. I think the Longhorns get this done, build a lead in the first half, hold on, and win this game by double digits. Collin, what do you got?
Yeah, I think Sark wants to get a big win here for Coach P. And when you get into the numbers here, TCU's defense is just ripe for being picked off here. Texas gets to come home. I'm going to take Texas team total over 36.5. And it comes down to a lot of factors that point to the fact that the Longhorns are going to roll. TCU does not pressure quarterbacks whatsoever. And that is great news for Quinn Ewers. Why? He has a massive drop in adjusted completion percentage. He only commits turnover-worthy plays when he has a crowded pocket. He's not going to have that today because TCU doesn't pressure quarterbacks. And Texas is just the more physical team in the trench on both sides of the ball. And that's going to play into shorter TCU possessions here. Not to mention they're not going to, TCU's not going to be explosive with Max Duggan injury. Quentin Johnson's going to play, but he's still a little bit injured. So I think extra possessions are coming for Texas for this team total over. And you just cannot deny how bad TCU has been when teams get into scoring position. Any opponent that gets past the 40-yard line, TCU has allowed 4.4 points on per drive that crosses the 40-yard line. That's near like 6 points. It's near a touchdown every single time. That puts them bottom 10 in FBS. It's like an Ole. It's like letting a Matador, let them go through. I mean, everybody gets a touchdown against TCU when they get past the 40. So I'm going to take an over 36.5 here on Texas. They're going to roll today. Go Horns.
Going against your TCU boys. We have Texas full game. We have Texas team total over. Brett, are you going to join the party?
Absolutely. Look, you guys laid this out perfectly. I love Sonny Dykes. I love the Hypno Frog. TCU's been amazing this season, but they've also been one of the most fortunate or lucky, whatever you want to call them. They're the classic definition of the cardiac kids, comebacks in nearly every game. Texas, however, has hooked them from the start. The Longhorns have never trailed at halftime this year and are 7-2 versus the first half spread this season. TCU, meanwhile, has trailed at halftime in 3 of the last 4 games. I'm not going to wait around and worry about another crazy TCU second half comeback against Texas's 4-string quarterback. I'm going to play it safe. Texas, first half, minus 5.5. Okay, cool. Hook 'em.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't get any further down the depth chart than Card at quarterback. But it's Texas across the board in 3 different ways. Let's move on to our final marquee game of the day, also in prime time, a game that also could have college football playoff implications. We're headed out to the West Coast, to Eugene, Washington, at Oregon. Oregon down to, this number was at 13.5. We're getting 12.5 point favorites here. Sky high total. I think it's still sitting at 73. For me, I like Washington here. Took a small position, waiting to get more live. I really wanted 14, which is just such a key number in this game. So I don't think you're going to see many field goals. Neither team's going to get many stops. You look at an adjusted EPA perspective, both of these are 2 of the worst Power 5 defenses. Everyone's talking about the Oregon offense, but the Oregon defense is really bad. These 2 teams are very similar. But what I like about Washington in this matchup is they don't really run it. They're extremely passive. That's what you have to do against Oregon. Oregon's run defense is respectable. Their pass defense is horrific. Washington could keep up from a scoring perspective. I don't see them getting many stops, but I have this number a tad high. So give me Washington, and I'm going to look for a little more live. So say Oregon gets the ball first and goes down and scores a touchdown. Action app. Make sure you have your alerts on there because I'll probably be hitting Washington again. Collin?
Isn't it amazing all that we've been through the years, Stuckey, and the three of us get to make a decision in a couple of weeks on Bo Nix for Heisman. Like his name is going to be floated as a contender. It's just crazy how times have changed. I'm going with Washington here. We made a reference a couple of weeks ago when UCLA and Oregon played that it was like a tennis serve bot match. All you have to do is hold serve and see, who can get the first stop. And that was in the UCLA Oregon game. Well, we have the same thing here with Washington and Oregon. Washington is top 5 in finishing drives. Washington's top 5 in havoc allowed. They don't make mistakes. Washington's one of the best teams in third downs in the nation. And then finally, Washington's number 1 in the nation in passing down success rate. So even if they get behind the chains, there's a first down coming. And Oregon's going to give up points here on defense. They always do. They're near dead last in third down defense, and they have a finishing drives rank on defense outside the top 100. They're going to allow points. They're going to allow first downs. So Washington just needs to hold serve here, which, like Stuckey said, makes the 14 uber important, but I don't mind playing the number what it is right now. I would play it down to my power rating of 11. And like Stuck said, I will play it again live at 14, but there's just not going to be any defense played in this game, and you just need Washington to hold serve. So let's go with the Huskies.
Yeah, and Oregon doesn't get much pressure. Washington does a great job in pass protection. The nightmare scenario from a live perspective, just as a heads up, if you're looking to bet it, is I think if Washington gets the ball first and doesn't score, and then then they're maybe down 7-0, and Oregon has a chance to potentially double up at the end of the first half and
in the middle eight.
So
the middle eight.
That's something certainly to watch. Brett, what do you got here? You gonna make it a clean sweep?
The kiss of death, the clean sweep. I like Washington too. They've faced 7 Power 5 opponents this year. Only an 18-point win against woeful Stanford was decided by less than 12 points. I think, like you guys laid out, it's going to be close, a lot of back and forth. Also, if Oregon's up late, obviously Washington has tremendous backdoor potential, but also Oregon also has Utah on deck. So I don't think they're going to go all out if they're up big in the fourth quarter. That will allow Washington to creep in that back door, hopefully. Stuckey, I know you love trivia, so look at the quarterbacks. Michael Penix, Bo Nix. This is the first time ever in college football history 2 quarterbacks whose last names end with Nix face off. So hopefully some young editor out west will work in the word Nixes in their post-game headline. I'll give it a try. Washington Nixes Oregon cover. Give me UW plus 13.
That's good.
Penix versus Bo Nix. Love it. That one should be fun. Yeah, both of these primetime games should be plenty of scoring and should be highly entertaining. All right, good stuff on the marquee games. We do have one final order of business, and that's our final best bet. I'll kick things off. I'm going to go with Mississippi State and Mike Leach here against Georgia. Potential letdown spot for Georgia after that huge, emotional, just dominant win over Tennessee. We've seen Georgia this year. Collin and I talked about this in the podcast. When they know how good they are, they've just been bored in a couple spots, at Missouri, against Kent State. Maybe you see that here. I also think Mississippi State has the offense that could potentially move the ball a little bit against Georgia. We saw that a couple of years ago in Will Rogers' second start. I think he was like 31 of 41 for 360 yards, touchdown, no interceptions. Mississippi State also plays very slow. Pass a lot, but plays slow. That helps as an underdog. And in Mississippi State, this will be the best pass defense that Stetson Bennett has faced. You look at their two toughest opponents this year. Who we just talked about? Oregon and Tennessee. Very poor secondaries. So I think this number is a little inflated. For what it's worth, over the past 20 years, no coach has been more profitable against the spread when catching 2 touchdowns or more than Mike Leach. Give me the cowbells. Collin, what do you got?
I would like to know what the against the spread record is after Leach calls his players, eating sandwiches, drinking Kool-Aid, and hanging with their fat girlfriends. Because, it's like his motivational tool every time. I'm going to go with Marshall +1 here. Huge emotional day for them. The Thundering Herd are playing tribute to the 75 individuals who passed on the 1970 plane crash. It's always an emotional weekend when this happens for Marshall home crowd. So I expect them to be fired up. But that's not the reason for the handicap. The handicap is the defense. It's got to be one of the best in the group of 5. Top 10 nationally in every category, including success rate, havoc, finishing drives. And more importantly, Marshall is the number 1 team in the nation in third down defense. This App State team has just not been what we thought they were the last few years. They've only covered 3 games this year. They have a poor tackling grade and one of the worst special team ranks in all of college football. Give me Marshall at home and a big game for them. Easily the best bet for me today.
Brett?
I'm going Texas Tech and Kansas. Texas Tech has to win 2 of its final 3 games to get bowl eligible for first-year coach Joey McGuire. The Red Raiders have already shown what they can do at home. They beat Texas at home. Like Kansas did last week against Oklahoma State, Texas Tech knows how important this home game is. Last week, Kansas clinched its first bowl berth in 14 years after beating Oklahoma State. Their fans tore down the goalposts, celebrating like they had won another NCAA basketball championship. Shout out to my boy Bill Self. After the game, Kansas quarterback Jason Bean was so emotional, he was crying at the end of the game on the sideline. I hadn't seen anyone crying that much until yesterday when Stuckey learned Darren Ravel had also picked Texas. Enough of the crying games. Red Raiders roll over a flat Jayhawk squad.
All right, good stuff there. That'll do it for us. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. Thanks to our audio and video team on the back end. Also, thanks to our sponsor, BetMGM. Remember, bonus code ACTION when you sign up, $1,000 risk-free wager. For myself, Collin Wilson live from jail, Mr. Brett McMurphy, and his boy, Bill Self. That'll do it for us. Thanks for tuning in to Big Bets on Campus Live. We'll catch you same time next week, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Also, make sure you listen and download to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. Wherever you listen to podcasts, 959 Bad Beat. Call to the voicemail. Cash prize for the best call of the week. Recap episode on Monday. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck on your wagers today. We'll see you next week. Cheers.